My name is Samuel Washington. I'm 71 years old, a retired insurance adjuster, and I've lived in Detroit, Michigan my whole life. What I'm about to share with you is the hardest truth I've ever had to face. A truth that lived in my house for over 3 decades. A truth that almost killed me. If you think domestic violence only happens to women, I need you to sit down and listen close. Because the story I'm telling you today will prove that pain doesn't check what's between your legs before it comes knocking. And revenge, when done right, doesn't need your fists. It needs your mind. I spent more than 30 years of my life under my wife's hand. 32 years listening to screaming that could wake the dead. 32 years of insults that cut deeper than any knife. 22 years of slaps, punches, and whatever she could throw at my head. 32 years keeping my mouth shut because I thought a black man couldn't complain about something like that. Not in this world. Not in this country. But there was one day when she crossed a line she shouldn't have crossed. One day that almost took my eyesight. And that day, I decided it was over. Not with violence. Not with yelling. I was going to end it by serving her a feast now, before I go any further. If you've ever been through something that made you question who you are, hit that like button for this old man. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next story I'm sharing straight from my heart. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Have you ever had to make one decision that changed absolutely everything? I love knowing what city you're calling home and what part of your day you're spending with me. My story starts way back in my childhood, right here in Detroit. I was born and raised on the East Side, in a neighborhood where everybody knew everybody. My daddy worked at the Chrysler plant on Knack Avenue. Spent 30 years on that assembly line, building cars with his bare hands. My mama was a homemaker who kept our house running like a well-oiled machine. She raised me and my 4 siblings with nothing but love and whatever she could stretch from my daddy's paycheck. We didn't have much, but we had enough. Collard greens, cornbread, fried chicken on Sundays, and more love than you could fit in that small house. From the time I was young, I was quiet. I wasn't the type to start fights in the street or get into trouble. My mama used to say I was the easiest child she had. I kept my head in my books. I liked numbers, solving problems, seeing everything fit together like puzzle pieces. That's why I ended up working in insurance. I loved that feeling of order, of everything making sense, of being exactly where it should be. But life, my friend, doesn't always follow the plan you draw up. And God had a test waiting for me that I never saw coming. A test that started the day I met Vanessa. I met Vanessa at the annual church picnic right there in the neighborhood. I was still young, fresh out of business school, and working at a small insurance firm downtown on Woodward Avenue. It was time to start thinking about settling down, about building a family. My mama was on me constantly. Samuel, when am I going to get some grandbabies? My daddy would just laugh, but I could see in his eyes he was thinking the same thing. That afternoon at the picnic, Palmer Park was full of life. The smell of barbecue ribs and sweet tea filled the air. There were games, music, and all that joy you only get when black folks come together to celebrate. I was standing there with some friends, talking about the Pistons game from the night before, when she walked up. Vanessa. Long braids, warm brown eyes, a yellow sundress that caught the light just right. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my life. She was a social worker at a community center on the West Side. She had this natural grace about her. She spoke with purpose. She could talk about anything and make it interesting. When she smiled at me, I felt my heart jump in my chest. We talked all afternoon. She was funny, smart, and she seemed genuinely interested in me. At the end of the picnic, I asked for her number. She gave it to me, and that's where everything started. That's where my life changed forever. The beginning of our relationship was good. We went out on Sundays after church, caught movies at the Detroit Film Theater, grabbed ice cream at Belle Isle. Vanessa was affectionate. She called me every day, wanting to know how I was doing. I thought that was beautiful. I thought it was attention. I thought it was love. Only over time, that attention started to shift. She started asking too many questions. Where were you? Who were you with? Why did it take you so long? At first, it seemed sweet. I thought she cares about me so much that she worries. I remember one time I went to play pickup basketball with my boys at Chandler Park, a typical Sunday afternoon thing. I told her I'd be there. She said that was fine. I was gone for about 3 hours, but the game ended early, and I stopped by the corner store to have a beer with the fellas before heading home. When I got to her apartment to pick her up for evening service, her face was stone cold. You said you were playing basketball, she said. Her voice flat. I did play, I said. Then why do you smell like beer? I explained that I'd stopped by the store, that it was normal, that we always did that after the game. She didn't want to hear it. You lied to me, Samuel. You said basketball. You didn't say drinking. I tried to explain that I hadn't lied, that I just didn't give her every single detail, but she was mad all week. Wouldn't answer my calls. Wouldn't see me. I was panicking. I thought I was going to lose her. I went to her place, apologized, told her I'd let her know every detail next time. She forgave me, but she made it clear. I need to know everything, Samuel. Everything. If you really love me, you won't hide anything from me. I agreed. I thought it was jealousy, that she loved me so much it scared her. The months went by, and I started noticing her temper. When she got angry, she screamed. It wasn't the normal yelling you get in an argument. No, this was fury. Real fury. The kind that makes you shrink down inside yourself. Once we were walking through Eastern Market, and I said hello to an old classmate from high school. Just a quick, hey, how you been? From across the street. Vanessa didn't say a word for the rest of the walk. When we got somewhere quiet, she exploded. Who is that tramp? I explained she was just a former classmate, that there was nothing to it. She wouldn't hear it. She called me a liar. She said I was flirting right in front of her face. I should have seen the signs. I should have noticed this wasn't love. This was control. But I was young. I was in love. And I thought every relationship had its rough patches. My mama always said marriage was work, that you had to be patient, that women had moods. I believed her. After 2 years of dating, I asked her to marry me. I did everything right. I talked to her father, bought a simple ring, got down on one knee in her living room one Sunday after dinner. She said yes. She cried, hugged me, told me she was going to make me the happiest man in the world. And I believed her. God, how I believed her. The wedding was at a small Baptist church on the east side. All our family, friends, and coworkers came out. Vanessa looked beautiful in white. I wore a suit my brother lent me. We didn't have much money, but it didn't matter. I was happy. I was starting a new life with the woman I loved. We moved into a small apartment on 7 Mile, 2 bedrooms near the bus line. I worked at the insurance firm. She worked at the community center. We saved our money, planned to have children, dreamed of buying our own house. In the first few months, everything seemed perfect. Vanessa cooked well, kept the house clean, and we watched TV together at night. It seemed like one of those marriages you see in the movies. But then, little by little, things started to change. And I didn't realize that change was going to lead me into a hell that lasted more than 3 decades. A hell that would only end the day I served that feast. The first signs that something was wrong started slowly, Like a leak in the roof you don't notice until the ceiling's about to cave in. Vanessa became more demanding about the house. About me. About everything. If I left a towel on the bathroom floor, she complained. If I forgot to pick up something from the store, she got angry. At first, I thought it was just her being particular. I even found it charming. I thought she was taking good care of our home. But it wasn't just about being organized. It was about control. Vanessa needed to know where I was every single moment. If I left work and took 10 minutes longer to get home, she was already at the door, wanting to know why. Traffic was backed up on the lodge, I'd explain. Don't give me excuses, Samuel. I know how long it takes to get from there to here. She had timed the route. She knew exactly how many minutes it should take me. If I went over that time, I had to give her an explanation. The phone at my office rang constantly. It was her. I just wanted to make sure you were really there, she'd say. At first, my coworkers thought it was funny. They said I had a loving wife. But over time, they started realizing it wasn't normal. Mr. Coleman, who owned the firm, called me into his office one day. Samuel, your wife calls here 5-6 times a day. This is affecting your work. I was embarrassed. I apologized. I talked to Vanessa. I asked her to call less. She didn't like it. Are you ashamed of me? Is that it? It wasn't shame, I explained. It was just that I needed to focus on work. She was cold all week. We hadn't been married long when the insults started. At first, they were small, disguised as jokes. You're kind of slow, aren't you, Samuel? You don't know how to do nothing, right? She'd say it laughing, like it was funny. And I'd laugh too. A little uncomfortable, but pretending it didn't bother me. Only the comments got heavier. The insults became routine. One day, I forgot to pay the electric bill. I'd worked late. The bill stayed in the drawer. The due date passed. When the late notice came, Vanessa exploded. You're worthless. Incompetent. You can't do anything right. She screamed so loud I know the neighbors heard. I tried to explain. I told her I'd forgotten, that I'd pay the late fee, that it wouldn't happen again. You forgot? You forgot? How does an insurance man forget to pay a bill? You're a joke, Samuel. A joke. I stayed quiet. I lowered my head and said nothing. I didn't know what to do. Nobody had ever yelled at me like that. My daddy was a calm man. My mama never raised her voice. I didn't know how to react. I thought if I stayed quiet, she'd calm down. And she did. 2 hours later, she came to apologize. It's my nerves, Samuel. I have a problem with my nerves. But it's because I worry about us, about our money. Do you forgive me? I forgave her. Of course I forgave her. She was my wife, and I loved her. Only the nerve problems became more frequent. Anything was a reason for her to explode. If the rice was undercooked, if I took too long in the shower, if I forgot to turn off a light, she would scream, insult, call me useless, stupid, good for nothing. Then come back with that excuse. It's my nerves. I kept accepting it, forgiving, thinking it was normal. My friends started disappearing. Vanessa didn't like visitors. When someone came by the apartment, she'd get quiet and give short answers. She'd stay in the bedroom. After the person left, she'd complain. That friend of yours is ignorant. The other one's a freeloader. He comes here and doesn't even bring nothing. I stopped inviting people over. I isolated myself. I lost contact with almost everyone from my single days. I only kept 2 close friends. Raymond Ellis, who'd been my classmate and was now a lawyer, and William Carter, who I met playing ball on Thursdays and who'd become a Detroit police officer. Thursday basketball was my only escape. I'd leave work, head to the court, play for an hour or so, and come home. Vanessa hated it. "You'd rather be with those lazy bums than with me," she'd say. I tried to explain that it was my time, that I needed it to clear my head. Clear your head? You sit at a desk all day writing policies, and you need to clear your head? I'm the one dealing with troubled kids all day. I'm the one who should relax. But I insisted on basketball. It was the one thing I wouldn't give up. Every Thursday, I was there. And every Thursday, when I got home, she was angry. Sometimes she wouldn't even make dinner. She'd stay in the bedroom with the door closed, ignoring me. I'd eat alone in the kitchen, silent, feeling that heavy weight in the house. It was around that time we decided to have children. Or rather, she decided. "It's time, Samuel. We've been married a few years now. We're stable. I want to be a mother. I wanted to be a father too. So I agreed. And it didn't take long. She got pregnant. When she told me, I was happy. I thought a child would change things, would calm her down, would make us a real family. During the pregnancy, Vanessa was calmer. She stopped yelling so much. She became more affectionate. I breathed a sigh of relief. I thought it was just a phase. She was stressed. But now she'd get better. We set up the baby's room, bought a crib, clothes, diapers. I worked harder to afford everything. I took extra shifts, did side work. I wanted my child to have everything they needed. Isaiah was born. A beautiful, healthy boy. I cried when I held him. For the first time in a while, I thought, now, finally, we'll be happy. But the happiness didn't last long. Very short-lived. Vanessa became even more controlling after Isaiah was born. She wouldn't let anyone hold the baby. Wouldn't even let my mama help. I know how to take care of my son. I don't need nobody. She was irritated, tired, nervous. And guess who she took it out on? Me. If the baby cried at night, it was my fault. You made noise and woke him up. If the baby got sick, it was my fault. You left the window open. He caught a chill. I tried to help, but everything I did was wrong. That's not how you change a diaper. That's not how you hold him. You're going to drop him. I gave up trying to help. I just stood there watching, afraid of doing something wrong and making her explode again. It was around that time, when the baby was still small, that it happened for the first time. The first time she raised her hand against me. And I never forgot that day. Never. Isaiah must have been only a few months old when it happened. It was a Thursday. I remember clearly because it was game day. I'd left the office at the normal time. I stopped by the court to play with the guys just like I always did. Only that day, the game got delayed. William, who was supposed to ref, arrived late because he had some business at the station. We started playing almost an hour later than usual. I didn't have a cell phone back then. Almost nobody did. So I couldn't call. I thought about leaving. But the guys insisted. "Stay, Samuel. It's just an hour." I stayed, played, quickly showered in the locker room, left. When I checked my watch, I saw I was 30 minutes late. 30 minutes. I had no idea what those 30 minutes were going to cost me. I got home, and Vanessa was in the living room with Isaiah in her arms. The baby was asleep. She looked at me with eyes I'd never seen before. Hateful eyes. "What time is it, Samuel?" I looked at the clock. 7:30. "And what time were you supposed to be here?" 7. "So you're 30 minutes late." I explained that the game had been delayed, that there was no way to call, that it wasn't on purpose. She kept staring at me in silence. A heavy silence. "Put the baby in his crib," she said in that low, dangerous voice. I should have run right then. I should have realized something very bad was about to happen. But I didn't. I was too trusting. I put Isaiah in his crib, came back to the living room, and she went into the kitchen. I stood there, not understanding anything. When she came back, she was carrying a pot. A medium-sized aluminum pot, the kind we used to make beans in. I looked at the pot. I looked at her. And before I could say anything, she raised her arm, whack, the pot hit me right on the side of my head. I felt sharp pain, a wave of dizziness, and I fell to my knees on the floor. Everything blurred for a few seconds. I heard her voice, distant, like it was coming from underwater. Don't you ever keep me waiting again. Never again. I brought my hand to my head. It was bleeding. Not a lot, but it was. I looked down and saw a few drops of blood falling onto the carpet. I looked up at her. Vanessa was standing there, the pot still in her hand, breathing hard, looking at me with that furious gaze. "Get up," she said. I got up, still dizzy. "Go clean that blood off the floor. And next time, you be on time." She threw the pot onto the couch and walked into the bedroom. I stayed there alone, bleeding, unable to believe what had just happened. I wiped the blood from the floor, went to the bathroom, soaked a towel, and cleaned my head. The cut was small, but it hurt. It hurt a lot, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the pain I was feeling inside. The pain of humiliation, of shame, of confusion that my wife had hit me. My wife had hit me over the head with a pot, and I hadn't done a thing. I hadn't hit back. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't even reacted. I sat on the edge of the tub and stared at myself in the mirror. What happened? I thought, how did I let this happen? But at the same time, I tried to justify it. She's stressed. She just had the baby. She's tired. Women's hormones are complicated. I tried to convince myself it was an accident, a moment of losing control, that it wouldn't happen again. I slept on the couch that night, not because she told me to, but because I couldn't lie down next to her. I was afraid of her, of my own wife. The next morning, she woke up normal, made coffee, said good morning like nothing had happened. I waited for an apology, an explanation, anything. But nothing came. She just looked at me and said, "I hope you learned not to make me wait." And she went to tend to the baby. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? My wife hit me with a pot. Who would believe me? Who would take it seriously? I imagined the reaction of my friends, my brothers, my father. They would laugh at me. They would say I was weak, that I wasn't a man, that I needed to put her in her place. And how was I supposed to put her in her place? By hitting her back? I couldn't even think about that. Hitting a woman? Never. My daddy had taught me from the time I was small, a man doesn't hit a woman, no matter what happens. So I kept quiet. I swallowed it. I hid the wound under my hair. When someone asked, I said I'd hit my head on the closet door. Nobody suspected anything. I thought it would be an isolated incident. I thought she would never do that again. But I was wrong. Terribly wrong. 2 months later, she hit me again. I'd forgotten to buy milk at the store. She'd sent me to get it, but when I got there, the store was closed. It was Sunday, 7 in the evening. I came back empty-handed. She was in the kitchen preparing Isaiah's bottle. Where's the milk? The store was closed. She slammed the bottle down in the sink and walked toward me. I already knew what was coming. I saw it in her eyes. She slapped me across the face, hard, a slap that turned my head and made my ear ring. You're good for nothing. Nothing. I held my face, feeling it burn. What am I supposed to do? Give my son water? I offered to go to a different store, one farther away that I knew stayed open later. Now you'll go, won't you? Now that I had to hit you to make you obey. I went. took the car, drove to the store in the other neighborhood, bought the milk, came back. When I got there, she didn't even thank me. She snatched the milk from my hand and went to make the bottle. I stood there, feeling my face burn, feeling like the smallest man in the world. And that's how it went. From time to time, she'd explode. Hit me, slaps, punches on my arm, on my chest. Once she hit me with a house slipper across the face because I left dishes in the sink. Another time she shoved me, and I hit my back against the door frame because I'd forgotten to buy bread, that it was always over small, stupid reasons. But for her, anything was reason enough. Isaiah grew up watching that, watching his mother hit his father. And I was there, silent, enduring, never hitting back, never yelling, just lowering my head and waiting for it to pass. I was ashamed that my son saw me like that. But what could I do? Hit her in front of him? I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't become what I hated most. When Alia was born a few years later, I thought things would get better. I thought Vanessa would become calmer, more mature. But no, it got worse. Now she had more reasons to be nervous. 2 children, more work, more exhaustion. And guess who paid for it? Me. The years went by and it became routine. Routine. I got punches from my wife like someone brushes their teeth every day. It became normal. So normal that I didn't even react anymore. I just waited for it to end. That's all, Dot, and nobody ever knew. Nobody ever suspected. Because on the outside, we were the perfect couple. Vanessa was friendly to everyone, polite, well-liked at the community center. I was the dedicated husband, the family man, the respected insurance man everyone trusted. Nobody imagined the hell that was my house when the door closed. But hell, my friend, has a limit. And my limit was still ahead of me. The years passed, and the violence got worse. It wasn't just a slap or a bump on the head every once in a while. It was almost every day. Anything I did or didn't do became a reason for her to take it out on me. I lived walking on eggshells inside my own home. I woke up in the morning already with that knot in my chest, afraid of doing something wrong that would set her off. Vanessa had a pattern. It started with the insults. You're worthless, Samuel. You're good for nothing. I should have married a real man. The insults would build. Her voice would get louder, more aggressive, and I already knew what was coming next. Her hands would start shaking. Her face would turn red. And then came the blow. She'd hit me with whatever she had nearby. A slipper, the TV remote, an empty coffee mug, a rolled-up kitchen towel. Once she hit me with a plate on the head because I'd put too much salt in the food. The plate didn't break, but it left a huge knot on my forehead. Another time, she threw a glass at me that grazed my ear and shattered against the wall behind me. I stood there looking at the pieces on the floor, thinking, one of these days she's going to hit me right, and I'll end up in the hospital. But I couldn't go to the hospital. How would I explain? My wife threw a glass at my head. The doctors would look at me with pity, with contempt, with doubt. Oh, really? And you didn't do anything? You just let her? I could already hear the questions in my head. So I treated the wounds at home. Ice, ointment, a Band-Aid, and prayed that nobody would notice. At work, I wore long sleeves even in the heat. I had bruises on my arms, on my back, on my chest, places my clothes could hide. She never hit my face except for those quick slaps that didn't leave marks for long. She was smart. She knew exactly where to hit so as not to draw attention. That scared me because it showed it wasn't a loss of control. It was calculated. She knew what she was doing. My children grew up seeing all of that. Isaiah and Alia saw their mother hit their father since they were small. And you know what's the saddest part? They got used to it. For them, that was normal. That's how things worked at home. Mom's angry. Dad's getting hit. Life goes on. I remember one time Isaiah, who was already a teenager, asked me, "Dad, why don't you hit her back?" We were alone in the garage. He was helping me change the oil in the car. I looked at him and didn't know how to answer. "Because you don't hit a woman, son." He made a confused face. "But she hits you. It's different. Why?" I couldn't explain. How could I explain something I didn't understand myself? Alea was younger, quieter. She saw everything but didn't say anything. She stayed in her corner, in her room, studying, reading, doing her own thing. Sometimes I saw a deep sadness in her eyes. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to tell her everything was fine. But I couldn't, because nothing was fine, and she knew it. Things at home got heavier. Vanessa wasn't only violent with me. She yelled at the children, too. When they got bad grades, when they did something wrong, she'd explode. She didn't hit them, but the insults were heavy. "You're just like your father. Good for nothing." The children heard that and lowered their heads just like me. I tried to protect them. When she started yelling at them, I'd step in. "Vanessa, calm down. They're children." And then she'd turn on me. "You're going to teach me how to raise my children?" And the blows would come. I learned to take the blame, to shift her attention away from the children. If something was wrong, I'd take the fall. "It was my fault, Vanessa." I left it like that, and she'd take it out on me. But at least the children were safe. The isolation increased. I no longer saw my brothers. I no longer saw my friends. Vanessa had managed to cut me off from everyone. My mama was still alive at that time, but she lived in a nursing home on the west side because she'd gotten sick. I went to visit her when I could, but Vanessa didn't like it. "You pay more attention to your mama than you do to me." It wasn't true, but I avoided arguing. I started spacing out my visits, and I regret that to this day. I regret not making the most of the last moments with her. The only escape I still had was Thursday basketball. I insisted on that. It was the only thing I wouldn't give up. Raymond and William were the only friends left. They noticed something was wrong with me. "Samuel, you're very quiet lately," Raymond would say. "Everything okay at home?" I would lie. "Everything's perfect." "Just tired." "You sure?" "You look worn out." "It's the job." Just that. They didn't press. I think deep down they suspected, but they didn't know how to approach it. Once William saw a bruise on my arm when I was changing my shirt in the locker room. "What was that?" I quickly lied. "I hit myself on the corner of the table." "The corner of the table?" "Yeah, it was an accident." He didn't say anything else, but he looked thoughtful. I saw in his eyes that he hadn't bought my excuse. Life at home became complete hell. I worked all day, came home afraid, ate dinner in silence, went to bed early so I wouldn't have to be near her. We barely spoke. Marriage had become a prison. But I couldn't leave. I was afraid. Afraid of losing my children. Afraid of what she would do. Afraid of what people would say. He abandoned his wife and kids. He's a coward. I was also ashamed. Ashamed to admit I was a victim of domestic violence. Those words didn't even cross my mind. Domestic violence was something men did to women, not the other way around. At least that's what everyone thought. What I thought? I didn't see myself as a victim. I saw myself as weak. The years passed and I aged in that suffering. My hair turned gray. Wrinkles appeared. My back stooped. I was an old man on the inside, tired, defeated, and she kept hitting, kept insulting, kept humiliating me. There was a time when I considered suicide. I won't lie. I thought about ending everything. disappearing, feeling nothing anymore. I looked at the Detroit River and thought, if I jump in there, it ends. But I didn't jump. You know why? Because of my children. Even if they were cold toward me, even if they treated me like I was nothing, I was still their father. And a father doesn't abandon his children, not even by dying. So I kept going. I kept waking up every day, going to work, coming home, getting hit, sleeping, and starting over. It was a survival routine. I wasn't living. I was surviving. And Vanessa was increasingly confident, increasingly sure that I would never do anything, never react, never leave. She had broken me. At least that's what she thought. I was her dog, her punching bag, her doormat. And everyone thought we were a happy couple because she smiled at everyone on the street, greeted the neighbors, was well liked at work, participated in church. Her mask was perfect. But masks fall off someday, and hers was about to fall. I just didn't know when. I didn't know that when was closer than I imagined. More than 20 years passed in that hell. 22 years to be exact. 22 years receiving blows, keeping silent, hiding, surviving. I had gotten used to it. It sounds crazy to say this, but it's true. You get used to everything. Even hell. My children had grown up and left home. Isaiah had found a job in Chicago and moved there. He rarely called. When he did call, he talked to his mother, not to me. I listened to their conversation from far away, pretending I didn't care. But I did care. It hurt. Alia had gotten married and moved to California. She also called little. And when she did, it was always quick, always in a hurry. They had both fled that house. I didn't blame them. I would have run away too if I could. But I stayed. Just me and Vanessa, alone in that house we had managed to buy over the years. A nice house. 3 bedrooms. A small yard on a quiet street in Detroit. On the outside, the house was pretty well maintained. Vanessa was meticulous about those things. But inside that house was a graveyard. Silence. Coldness. Fear. I had retired from the insurance firm a few years ago. I stayed home most of the time, and that made everything worse, because now I was there all the time, always available to be her target. Before, when I worked outside, I had a few hours of peace. But retired and home all day, I was always within her reach. Vanessa had also retired from the community center. She'd been a social worker her whole life. She'd helped generations of families. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Miss Washington, the caring, patient, dedicated social worker. If they knew who she really was, they'd be shocked. But nobody knew. Nobody would ever know. Or at least that's what I thought. Then came a Thursday. Game day. I still played basketball with the guys, even though I was old. I didn't play like before, of course. I was almost 70 now. My legs didn't respond the same. My breath was short. But I went because it was the only time I felt alive. The only time I breathed without that weight on my chest. That specific Thursday, I went out to play as always. I let Vanessa know. Going to basketball. She didn't even reply. She was sitting on the couch watching television. I left, played, talked with William and Raymond, laughed for a few hours. I forgot that I had to go back home. When the game ended, I showered in the locker room, changed, and headed back. I got home around 7 in the evening. Vanessa wasn't in the living room. I thought she'd gone to the bedroom. I turned on the TV to watch the game that was about to start. Pistons versus Bucks. I loved basketball. It was one of the few things that still brought me pleasure, was sitting there on the couch, watching the pregame when I heard a car pull up. I looked out the window and saw Vanessa getting out of an Uber. She'd gone to the salon to get her hair done. I didn't even know. She hadn't told me. But I already knew that didn't matter. If she didn't tell me, and I didn't ask, it was my fault anyway. She walked in through the front door with that look. That look I knew so well. The face of someone looking for a reason to fight. I immediately felt the atmosphere change. I sensed the danger in the air. But I stayed there, silent, pretending I was focused on the game. "Turn that off," she yelled out of nowhere. I flinched. I looked at her. "What?" "But the game is about to start." "I don't care about your game. Turn it off." I picked up the remote slowly, trying not to anger her further. But I wasn't fast enough. Before I could press the button, she crossed the room, snatched the remote from my hand, and hurled it at my face with all her strength. Crack. The remote hit me squarely on my glasses. I felt the impact, the glass shattering, and sharp pain above my eye. I brought my hand to my face, and when I took it away, it was covered in blood. The remote had broken my glasses, and the glass had cut my eyebrow. Hot blood started trickling down my face. I looked at her, still in shock. She stood there in front of me, breathing heavily, eyes wide, hands trembling. For a second, I saw fear in her eyes, as if she realized she'd gone too far. But the fear lasted only a short time. "You deserve it," she screamed. "You don't listen to me. You never listen to me." I held my hand to my face, trying to stop the blood that wouldn't stop flowing. "Vanessa, I'm bleeding." "So what?" "It's just a scratch." "You're being dramatic." But it wasn't a scratch. The cut was deep. I felt the blood seeping between my fingers, dripping onto the couch, onto my clothes. I needed help, but she wouldn't help me. She never helped. I tried to get up to go to the bathroom, but she wasn't finished. She lunged at me and started hitting me. Slaps on the face, punches on the chest, on the arm, on the back. "You're useless. A good-for-nothing man." I should have married a real man. I didn't hit back. I never hit back. Even though I was bleeding, even though I felt every blow, I just stood there letting her. Because that's what I always did. I endured. I suffered. I accepted. When she got tired of hitting me, she took a step back, looked at me with contempt, and said, "Did you learn your lesson?" I didn't answer. I just looked at her. And it was at that moment, that exact moment, that something inside me broke. It wasn't the physical pain. It wasn't the blood. It was something bigger. Something I can't quite explain. It was as if a cord holding everything together inside me had snapped all at once. I looked her in the eyes. And for the first time in 22 years, I didn't feel fear. I felt rage. Pure rage, cold rage, controlled rage. And along with the rage came a clarity I'd never felt before. I looked at her and thought, never again. Never again. Now will you respect me? She asked with that wicked little smile. I didn't reply. She waited a little longer. Since I said nothing, she shrugged. "Clean up this mess," she said, pointing to the blood on the couch. And she walked into the bedroom. She closed the door, and I heard her turn on the TV inside as if nothing had happened. I stayed there alone in the living room, bleeding. I grabbed a towel from the kitchen and pressed it against the cut. The pain was great, but it was nothing compared to what I was feeling inside. I looked at the clock. 9 at night. I looked at myself in the hall mirror and saw my reflection. An old man bleeding with broken glasses in his hand. A broken man, but that night, something changed. I can't explain exactly what, but I felt it. For the first time in decades, I felt like I had a choice. I could continue to be that man, or I could do something. Something to end it. I cleaned the blood from the couch, went to the bathroom, washed my face, and put a Band-Aid on the cut. The bleeding gradually stopped. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eye was starting to bruise. The cut was nasty, but it would heal. Wounds always heal. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed sitting in the living room in the darkness, thinking about everything. About the years of marriage, the blows, the insults, the humiliation, the loneliness. I thought about my children who had grown up seeing that and who now treated me like I was nothing. I thought about myself, about the man I had been and the man I had become. And then, in that silent early morning, with my black eye and the cut burning, I made a decision. I was going to end it, but not the way she expected. Not with violence, not with yelling, not with a scandalous separation where I came out looking like the villain. I was going to end it my way. With intelligence, with evidence, with the law. And in the end, when everything was over, she would understand that she had underestimated the wrong man. When the sun rose on Friday, I already had a plan. I waited for Vanessa to wake up, have coffee, and leave to go to her sister's house, like she always did on Fridays. As soon as she was gone, I picked up the phone and called Raymond Ellis. "Raymond, it's me, Samuel. I need to talk to you. It's urgent." His voice came back concerned. "Samuel, what happened? Are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay. But I will be. I need your help. Can you meet me today?" He didn't hesitate. "Of course. Where?" "At that diner on Woodward. You know the one?" "Yeah. What time?" 10 in the morning. I'll be there." I hung up and took a deep breath. First step taken. Now I had to take the second step. I picked up the phone again and called William Carter. He answered on the second ring. "Hello, William. It's Samuel." "Samuel, everything good, my man?" "Good game yesterday. William, I need your help. Officially." His voice changed. "Officially how?" "I need you to trust me. Can I come down to the station this afternoon?" "You can, but tell me what's going on. In person. I can't talk on the phone." He was silent for a few seconds. "All right. 3 o'clock. Ask for me at the front desk." I hung up. 2 steps taken. Now I was about seeing it through to the end dot. At 10 in the morning, I was at the diner. I sat at a table in the back, away from the window. Raymond arrived 15 minutes later. When he saw me, he froze. "My God, Samuel, what happened to you?" He saw my face, the black eye, the cut on my eyebrow. I was wearing my spare glasses, but I couldn't hide the bruises. "Sit down," I said. He sat down, never taking his eyes off me. "It was her, wasn't it?" I didn't need to answer. He saw it on my face. "How long, Samuel?" He asked quietly. "How long has this been going on?" I took a deep breath. 22 years. His eyes widened. 22 years. She's been hitting you since almost the beginning of the marriage. She insults me, humiliates me, and I never told anyone until now. Raymond ran a hand over his face, incredulous. "Samuel, why? Why did you never tell me?" "Shame," I said. "Shame of being a man and getting hit by a woman. Shame of you laughing at me, of seeing me as weak." "I would never do that," he said, indignant. "Never. You're my friend." "I know," I said. "But back then, I didn't think like that. I thought nobody would believe me. I thought I deserved it. I thought a lot of wrong things. But yesterday, she almost blinded me, Raymond. And I realized that if I don't do something now, one day she's going to kill me." Raymond stayed silent, processing everything. Then he spoke. "What do you want to do?" "I want to end this. End her. End this marriage. but the right way. Legally, I want her to pay for what she did. You need evidence, he said. It's your word against hers. And you know how it is. A judge isn't going to believe a man gets beat up by a woman without proof. I know, I said. That's why I'm here. I need evidence. And you're going to help me. Raymond thought for a moment, then nodded. Hidden cameras. You install cameras in the house and record the assaults. That way, we have proof she can't deny. She might say I provoked her, I said. She might, he agreed. But if the video shows you being silent and her hitting you for no reason, it becomes hard to argue. And if you have multiple videos, even better. I agreed. It made sense. Help me buy the cameras, I asked. And later, when I have enough material, we act. I'll help you, he said. All the way. You're my friend, Samuel. And what she's doing to you is a crime. Domestic violence. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. It's a crime. I left the diner with a concrete plan. I met William that afternoon at the station. I told him everything, too. His reaction was similar to Raymond's. Shock, rage, a desire to help. When you have the evidence, he said, you call me. I'll come for her myself. I'll put the cuffs on her myself. That weekend, I bought 4 small, discreet security cameras. I waited for Vanessa to leave and installed one in the living room, hidden behind a picture frame, one in the kitchen above the cabinet, one in the hallway, and one in the bedroom disguised inside a clock. They were all recording 24 hours a day, saving directly to a hard drive that I hid at the bottom of a closet. And that's when the hardest part began, waiting, continuing to live in that hell. But now knowing that every assault was being recorded, every insult, every slap, every humiliation, all captured, all stored. And believe me, it didn't take long for her to give me more than enough material. The first week with the cameras was difficult. Not because Vanessa suspected anything. She didn't. The hard part was having to endure the assaults, knowing I was intentionally letting them happen. Because now every hit had a purpose. It was being recorded. It was evidence. On Monday of the first week, she hit me because the beans burned. I was cooking, got distracted for a minute, and the beans stuck to the bottom. She smelled it, came into the kitchen, and saw the pot. You don't even know how to cook beans. What a useless man. She grabbed a wooden spoon and hit me on the arm twice. It hurt, but I didn't react. I stayed there silent, letting her. And the kitchen camera recorded everything. On Wednesday, she couldn't find her car keys. She searched everywhere, got nervous, and decided it was my fault. You hid my keys. You did it on purpose. I tried to help her search, but she wouldn't have it. She came toward me and slapped me in the face. Hard. The key was in her purse the whole time. She found it 5 minutes later. Didn't apologize. Never did. And the living room camera recorded the slap. On Friday, the electric bill arrived higher than usual. She opened it, looked at the amount, and exploded. You leave everything turned on. The bill is expensive because of you. She came toward me and shoved me against the hallway wall. The push was strong. My back hit hard. She punched me in the stomach. I lost my breath for a few seconds. I doubled over trying to breathe. She looked at me with contempt and left. The hallway camera recorded everything. End of the first week. 3 documented assaults. In the second week, I was late at the store. I went to buy bread in the morning and stayed chatting with Mr. Jenkins at the bakery. I stayed about 20 minutes longer. When I got back, Vanessa was waiting at the door, furious. Where were you? I sent you to buy bread, not to go sightseeing. She snatched the bag from my hand and started hitting me. Slaps, kicks, punches. "You're going to learn to obey me," she screamed. Out of control, I stayed there, shielding my face with my arms, waiting for it to pass. When she got tired, she went inside and slammed the door. The living room camera had filmed everything through the window. In the third week, I forgot to iron her clothes. She was going out with her friends and had asked me to iron the blouse she was going to wear. I left it until the last minute, on purpose. When she went to look for it and saw it wasn't ironed, she came at me like a beast. "You don't do anything right. Nothing." She slapped me. Then another slap. Then she grabbed a magazine from the table and hit me on the head with it. It didn't hurt much, but the humiliation was great. The living room camera recorded it. In the fourth week, I took too long in the bathroom. I stayed in there about 20 minutes. She started pounding on the door. "Get out of there." "What are you doing?" When I came out, she shoved me. "You take too long on purpose just to irritate me." She punched me in the arm, then kicked me in the shin. I stumbled and almost fell. The hallway camera recorded it. End of 4 weeks. 7 well-documented assaults, plus the daily insults, threats, and humiliations. All recorded. All stored. I took the hard drive to Raymond. We met again at the diner. He connected it to his laptop and started watching. I saw his expression change as the videos played. Shock, rage, sadness. Finally, he closed the laptop and stayed silent for a few minutes. "My friend," he said, his voice choked. "How did you endure all this?" I shrugged. "You get used to it." He shook his head. "This isn't getting used to it. This is torture. And now?" I asked. "It's over. We have enough evidence to finish her. But I want to do something first," I said. Raymond looked at me curiously. "What?" "I want to make a dinner. A special dinner for her." He frowned. "A dinner?" "Let me explain. I want to make a nice, well-prepared dinner. Let her think I've surrendered, that I've finally learned to be her dog. And in the middle of dinner, you and William show up with the evidence. And it all ends right there, in front of her. At the table, I prepared." Raymond thought for a moment, then a smile appeared on his face. "You want to humiliate her the same way she humiliated you all your life?" "No," I corrected. "I want to show her that she underestimated the wrong man, that I'm not the coward she thinks I am, and that intelligence is worth more than force." Raymond agreed. "Brilliant. I'll let William know. You set the day and we'll be there." "Next Friday," I said. 7 o'clock sharp. We'll be waiting." The following week was strange. I treated Vanessa much better than I normally did. I made her coffee in the morning, asked if she wanted anything from the store, tidied the house without her asking. She was surprised at first, looked at me with suspicion. But little by little she accepted it, and her ego swelled. She thought she'd broken me once and for all, that I'd finally learned my place. On Thursday, I told her, "Vanessa, tomorrow I'm going to make a special dinner for you." She raised an eyebrow. "Special dinner? Why?" "Because you deserve it." "You're right. I've been careless. I've caused problems. I want to make amends." She smiled, that wicked smile of someone who believes they've won. "It's good that you're starting to understand things, Samuel." On Friday morning, I woke up early. I went to the butcher, bought good steaks, went to the grocery store, and bought expensive wine, potatoes, vegetables, dessert. I came home and started cooking. I spent the whole morning in the kitchen. I made the perfect steak, medium rare, just the way she liked it. I made roasted potatoes. I made a well-prepared salad. I put everything on the best plates we had. In the afternoon, I cleaned the entire house. I vacuumed, mopped, organized. I put out the white tablecloth, the one we only used on special occasions. I lit candles, set out the crystal glasses, put flowers in the center of the table. The house was spotless. It looked like a scene from a movie. Vanessa had gone to her sister's house, like she always did on Fridays. When she got back around 6:30, she stopped at the living room door and just stared. "What is all this?" "Your special dinner," I said, apron on, smiling. She looked at the table, the plates, the candles. Then she looked at me and smiled. That victorious smile. The smile of someone who believes they've completely destroyed another person. "You finally learned," she said, walking in and dropping her purse on the couch. "To be a real man." I didn't reply. I just smiled. "Sit down, dear. Dinner is ready." She sat at the head of the table, in the place that was always hers. The queen of the castle. Or at least that's what she thought. "Where's the wine?" she asked. "I'll bring it right away," I said, going to the kitchen. My heart was racing. I looked at the clock. 6:50, 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, everything would change. I grabbed the wine, grabbed the corkscrew, went back to the living room. I opened the bottle and poured her a glass. She took the glass, smelled the wine, took a sip. "Expensive wine," she commented. "You're really trying." I was about to reply when the doorbell rang. Ding-dong. Vanessa frowned. "Who is it at this hour?" "Guests," I said calmly. "What guests?" "You didn't tell me there would be guests." "Surprise," I said, walking toward the door. Her heart must have already been racing. I felt mine almost jumping out of my mouth. I opened the door. On the other side stood Raymond Ellis in a dark suit, William Carter in uniform, and 2 more police officers behind him. "Good evening, Samuel," Raymond said. "Good evening," I replied. "Come in, please." They walked in. Vanessa went white, literally white. She rose from the chair, startled. "What? What is this?" Her voice came out thin, trembling. "Samuel, what did you do?" I closed the door behind the officers and turned to her. "I didn't do anything, Vanessa." "You did. For 22 years. And then calmly, I grabbed the laptop that was hidden under the coffee table, opened it, and put it on the dinner table right in front of her. I pressed play, and she saw herself on the screen, hitting me, yelling at me, insulting me, humiliating me, assaulting me. One scene after another, with date and time. 7 different videos, perfect image and sound clarity. And at that moment, with the beautiful dinner on the table, the candles lit, the expensive wine poured, Vanessa's life collapsed. And mine began again. Vanessa stood there paralyzed, staring at the screen. Her hands trembled. Her face had lost all color. She watched for a few seconds, then tried to look away. But she couldn't. It was her. Unmistakable. Hitting, screaming, humiliating, without editing, without cuts, without lies. The raw, naked truth. "This is a lie," she finally screamed, trying to regain her voice. "You set this up. You provoked me. These images are what, Vanessa?" William interrupted, his voice firm. "Montage? We have 7 different videos from 4 consecutive weeks. You want us to believe your husband spent all this time making fake videos?" Vanessa tried another tactic. She started crying. Fake tears. The kind she always used to get what she wanted. "I'm a woman. I'm the victim here. He was hitting me. These videos are me defending myself." She pointed at me. "He assaulted me, and I reacted. Self-defense." Raymond, who was standing on the other side of the table, opened a folder he'd brought. "Self-defense?" he said. He pulled out several papers. "Then explain this to me." 47 videos in total. 32 hours of recording. At no point does Mr. Washington raise his hand against you. At no point does he yell. At no point does he react. You want to see all of them? Because I brought everything here. Her crying stopped immediately. She realized there was no way out. She looked at me with hatred. You betrayed me. You're a traitor. 32 years of marriage, and you do this to me. I took a deep breath. It was my turn to speak. 32 years, Vanessa. 32 years I forgave you. Every time you hit me. Every time you insulted me. Every time you humiliated me in front of our children. I forgave you because I thought it was love. That you would change. That I deserved it. My voice was firm now. Not trembling. Without fear. But it's over. You said I learned to be a man. Yes, I learned. A real man doesn't accept being a punching bag. A real man defends himself. But with the law. With intelligence. Not with his fists. William approached Vanessa. Vanessa Washington, you're under arrest. His voice was professional now. Not for a crime in progress, but preventative arrest. Clear risk of aggression to the complainant. He signaled to the 2 officers who'd come with him. They approached, one on each side. No, you can't do this. Vanessa tried to back away, but the officers held her arms. Samuel, please. I love you. It was my nerves. Just that. I have a nerve problem. Forgive me, for the love of God. The desperation in her voice was real now. But it was too late. 22 years too late. One of the officers put the handcuffs on her right there in the dining room, next to the beautiful table, the perfect dinner, the lit candles. The click of the handcuffs closing was the most liberating sound I'd ever heard in my life. You'll regret this, she screamed, being pulled toward the door. I'm going to destroy you. William stopped, turned to her, and said calmly, That's one more recorded threat, Mom. Keep it up, and we'll increase the charges. They took her away. Screaming, kicking, threatening. The neighbors had come out to their windows. I saw the curtains moving. The curious faces. Miss Washington, the beloved social worker, the exemplary wife, being placed in a police car in handcuffs. The gossip would be huge. But I didn't care what they said, what they judged. The truth was on my side, Dot. After the car left, I walked back inside. Raymond was still there, putting the papers away in the folder. He looked at me and smiled. A sad but sincere smile. It's over, Samuel. You were very brave. I felt my legs give way. I sat down in the chair, the same one I'd set for Vanessa. I looked at the table. The perfect untouched dinner. The wine, the candles. And for the first time in 22 years, I cried. I cried for real. Not from pain, but from relief that Raymond sat down beside me, putting his hand on my shoulder. Cry, friend. You have the right. And I cried. I cried for all the years of suffering, of silence, of humiliation. I cried until I had no more tears left. Afterward, we ate. Raymond and I sat at that table I prepared so carefully and ate the steak, which was delicious. At least the food is good, he said, trying to lighten the mood. I laughed. A sad but sincere laugh. It was the beginning of a new life. The following days were difficult. The news spread through the neighborhood quickly. Mr. Washington had Miss Washington arrested. She was hitting him. Domestic violence. Opinions were divided. There were people who supported me, and there were people who thought I was making it up. A man getting hit by a woman? He needs to man up. But I didn't care. The evidence was there, and justice would do its job. The process was fast. Raymond was a good lawyer, and the evidence was irrefutable. Vanessa's defense tried everything. They tried to invalidate the recordings. The judge was clear. In the case of a crime investigation, the recordings are valid. They tried to argue self-defense. The judge watched 5 minutes of video and asked, "Where is the aggression from Mr. Washington that justifies the defense?" There was none. Because it never existed, the sentence was handed down 6 months later. 4 years in a facility. A permanent restraining order. She couldn't come within 500 feet of me. And loss of rights to marital assets. I kept everything. The house. The car. The savings. She left with nothing. And it wasn't revenge. It was justice. The divorce was automatic. The marriage was dissolved due to proven assault. I signed the papers at the courthouse and felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. I was free. Officially free, but freedom came with a price. My children. Isaiah called me a week after her arrest. "Dad, how could you do that to Mom?" She was just nervous. "You exaggerated." I tried to explain. I tried to say it had been 22 years of violence. That I had endured in silence. That I had proof. But he wouldn't listen. "You humiliated her. You put her in jail. I don't want to talk to you anymore." And he hung up. Alia called the next day. "Dad, we could have resolved this as a family. You didn't need to call the police." I stayed silent. Aliyah had also grown up watching me get hit. And she thought it was normal. That it was something resolved within the family. How? I asked, by getting hit for a few more years? By dying in silence? "Daughter, you both watched me get hit your whole lives. You saw it and thought it was normal. Now the law showed that it isn't. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. But they didn't understand. Or they didn't want to understand. They sided with their mother, visited her in prison, and said nothing to me. I suffered because of that. I suffered a lot. But I didn't regret it. Because if I hadn't done that, I would have died in that house. Either from a blow that went too far or from accumulated sadness. 2 years later, Vanessa was released from prison. The regime turned into parole. She'd behaved well, according to what I heard. But she'd lost everything. The house she once lived in was mine. I'd sold it. Her reputation was destroyed. Nobody saw her as the beloved social worker anymore. She went to live with her sister, bitter, aged, alone. She tried to find me once. She discovered I no longer lived in Detroit, that I'd moved, sold everything, started over somewhere else, a small town in northern Michigan, where nobody knew me, where nobody knew my story, where I could just be me. And it was in that town that I met Grace Turner. She was a widow, a few years younger than me. She lived in the same apartment building. We met in the elevator, in the lobby, at the corner coffee shop. She was kind. She smiled at me. She didn't scream, didn't insult, didn't hit. She treated me with respect, with affection. This was so new to me that at first I didn't know how to react. We started talking. Had coffee together in the morning. Walked together in the park in the afternoon. She told me about her life, about the husband she'd lost. I told her about mine. I didn't hide anything. I told her about the 22 years of violence, Vanessa's arrest, the children who turned their backs on me. She listened without judgment. At the end, she took my hand and said, "You were very strong. Now you deserve to be cared for." We started dating, a calm relationship between older people, without rush, without pressure. She showed me what it was like to be treated with real love, what it was like to wake up without fear, what it was like to be respected. For the first time in my life, I understood what a healthy relationship was. 5 years after the arrest, Alaya showed up. She'd found out where I lived. She knocked on the door of my apartment one Sunday afternoon. When I opened it and saw her there, my heart clenched. "Dad," she said, her voice shaking. "Mom died." Vanessa had died of a heart attack. Alone in the small room her sister had lent her, Alaya told me that in her final moments she'd called my name. "She died calling you, Dad." I stayed silent for a while. Then I said, "I'm sorry about your mother, daughter. I truly am. But she destroyed 32 years of my life. I won't pretend to mourn someone I don't feel grief for. I hope she found the peace she never gave me." Aliyah cried, and for the first time, she hugged me. "Forgive me, Dad. Forgive me for taking her side. I was wrong. We normalized something that should never have been normal." I hugged my daughter and forgave her. "I always loved you, daughter, even when you didn't deserve it, because that's what fathers do. Today, I have a life I never imagined I'd have. I live in a simple apartment, but it's mine. I wake up when I want, eat what I want, watch the games I want. Nobody screams at me. Nobody hits me. Nobody humiliates me. I have friends in the building. I play cards in the courtyard. I walk in the morning, and I have Grace by my side. We got married in a small ceremony, just with witnesses. She is the love I deserve to have found from the beginning." Aliyah started talking to me again. She visits sometimes, brings the grandchildren. Isaiah never called again. I accepted it. I won't beg a son to love me. When he understands, if he ever understands, he knows where to find me. I look back and see everything I went through. 22 years of hell. But I also see the man I became. A man who had the courage to ask for help. A man who used intelligence instead of violence. A man who became free. And that feast she thought was a sign of surrender, was the feast of my liberation. If this story of starting over, of courage, of freedom touched your heart, please leave a like to bring joy to this old man. Subscribe to the channel right now so you don't miss the next life stories I'll be sharing with all my heart. And tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from and what time it is right now. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that changed your life forever? Did you have to choose between continuing to suffer or fighting for your freedom? This grandfather is very happy to know who is on the other side, listening to me, and at what moment of your day you took a little time to hear me. A big tight hug the size of my heart. And remember, it's never too late to start over.